Yes, you can get paid to design websites on Squarespace. In this video, I'm going to walk through how I tried to do this, and I failed, and then I tried again and went from selling websites for, let's say, a few $100s all the way up to $20,000 for a project. But right before we begin, we need to uncover a few myths that people believe that we need to just be on the same page about as we start this video. This is the first myth. Squarespace is only for DIYers. This is not true. Reputable companies, big companies, and websites that get thousands, hundreds of thousands of hits a month use Squarespace. Myth number 2, people won't pay good money for a designer to use Squarespace. Now, I understand where this comes from, but it's just not true. People are happy to pay $10K for a website on Squarespace. Believe me, I've seen it so many times. Why? My personal belief is because it is the easiest platform for them to manage the site once it's done. One of my strongest selling points with designing websites is not just the website, but training. What we would do is we would do a Zoom call, a recorded Zoom call, where I would train the client on how to use their specific, unique, and custom website that I built on Squarespace. And because we recorded it, they had it forever. And the simplicity there is just amazing. The third myth, and this is probably the most controversial one, especially for website designers. Website developers don't use a tool like Squarespace. Wrong again. If your goal is to build award-winning websites, you may not start with Squarespace. But if your goal is to impress clients and build a great client relationship and give them confidence on how to develop the site after you launch the site, Squarespace is a great starting resource. So if you want to build award-winning websites, you probably won't want to use Squarespace because you're going to want to customize it a ton. But overall, if you want to build beautiful websites that are easy for the client to manage after the fact, Squarespace is a great place to begin. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, here's my story, and I'm going to try to keep it brief, but give you an overview, and there will be little gems maybe that you could pull from this story, my story, that can help you along in your process. So here's my story. I built my first website for a nonprofit. It was not on Squarespace, and I learned so much about how complicated it can be to build a website. A few months later, or maybe a year later, I discovered Squarespace and I transferred the website, or I built a new website for that same nonprofit on Squarespace. And that was my first exposure to Squarespace. And then from there, about a year later, I was working as a marketing associate. We needed a landing page. And so they asked, I suggested Squarespace, and so we built a site on Squarespace. Now, here's the first key. This was a great opportunity. Number one, because I was getting paid to learn. I did not know Squarespace in and out like I do now, but that time on the platform where I was getting paid per hour at the time, that gave me so much experience on the platform. I learned how to create sections. I learned how to add call to actions. I learned how to create testimonial sections. I learned how to add icons to the website. There was so much I learned in making a simple 2-page website. I think it took me about 40 hours to build. I look back on that, it would never take me that long. It'd take me 2 hours max to do that. But I remember that's what taught me how to size icons properly and how to set up testimonials so they look great on desktop and on mobile, all of that good stuff. And then from there, I left that corporate job and then I tried to freelance with a friend. We tried to freelance and we tried to send out cold emails, and that didn't work at all. So we sent out probably 300 cold emails and we did not get one single project. We tried to sell the projects for about $500, which should be affordable for a small business, but we got no hits. Fast forward 8 months later, I built my own site. It was just on my name, davidiskander.com. And at the time, I had a landing page and it was hideous, but I created some Google ads a few weeks later and I got my first hit. As soon as I started running ads, maybe a day or two later, I got my first hit. And I remember talking to one of my good friends at the time, right before I got on the call with the client, and being like, this is crazy. They potentially want to buy a package from me. And he prepped me for the call. He helped me understand what to ask and how to prepare and all of that, because I had never done it before. I had never done a sales call. And so he gave me one piece of advice as well. He said, if the client doesn't have a logo, try an upsell. Upsell? I can't even sell the project. You want me to do an upsell on top of it? So I hop on the call with the client. 17 minutes later, the call is done. On the call, we agreed to do a $1,500 project plus an upsell for a logo for $250. I was blown away. In a 17-minute phone call, I just went from $0 to $1,700. My mind was blown. It was such an amazing discovery for me and learning how to generate money as a freelancer. And that was probably my first legit full project as a freelancer. Now, a few things to bring out in this. Number one, I had services on my website, so the client knew what they were getting when they called. When you're starting out, you probably want to put your pricing on your website. When you're more experienced, you take it off. But when you start out, you probably want to put your pricing on the website because that is the main thing they're going to be looking for. The next thing is you don't have to have it all figured out. I didn't have a questionnaire yet. And I literally created the questionnaire after our call because it forced me, it's something like a forcing function. It put me in a position where I needed to send him a questionnaire to get the project started. So you don't need everything figured out to begin. And my final note right now, that was my third website, but that was technically my first freelance project. It's worth mentioning that just to make it clear that, hey, if you just started out, it might be good to try to build some sites for free or for $100 or $300. It's not about the money at that point. It's about the experience. I was lucky, I would say, that my third project was $1,500, but let's continue on the story and you'll see where this progressed to. So for the next few weeks, I continued to run Google Ads. I got more hits. I sold projects, $950, $1,500, $750, $950. And I'll say this as a side note, most of the projects that I sold as I began this new freelance business were about $950 in total. Most clients that found me were willing to pay about $1,000 for the project. And I would separate that into two invoices, the initial deposit, 50%, and then the second payment before we launched the site for the other 50%. But then my problem was I wanted to scale. I wanted to scale my pricing. But how do you charge $4,000 for a project when you're used to charging $950? Do you just change that price on your website from $950 to $3,950? Well, this is what I did. And there's probably a lot of different ways to do this, but this is what I did and found very valuable. So I wasn't confident enough to sell my expertise when I was beginning. So what I did was, if a project I thought was worth $3,000, but I only was really able to charge $2,000 for, or the client was only willing to spend $2,000 on it, I would still do the project because number one, I'm getting paid to learn. That is an amazing thing. Obviously, you don't want to be stuck there, but I was getting paid to learn. Number two, I then have that project to put in my portfolio. So yeah, the client isn't willing to pay me $3,000, but now I can show that project off to the next client and say, hey, look, here's a $3,000 value. So they could get a feel of what a $3,000 project is, and at the same time, I now have it in my portfolio to stand on and say, look, that's a $3,000 value right there. And that's how I went from basically doing a website for free to charging $1,500 to growing that to about $3,000 to about $5,000. And then after $5,000, I didn't have to scale it so slowly. I got to 10 quite quickly. And then I went all the way up to $20,000. There were a few additional things that we did with the $20,000 project, but the core basis of the project was surrounded by me being a Squarespace designer. And this is what I would just say as a final note. Don't worry too much about what you're gonna charge, especially starting out. Start lower so you could get the experience. Experience is the key here. I get messages every single week from people who want me to build their websites and are willing to pay a generous fee for that. But I say no to all of them because it's just not the work I do right now. But as you build expertise, you will become in demand. So that's what I would focus on. Don't focus on necessarily you need to bank every single dollar from this project. Yes, pay attention to scope creep. Yes, be clear with the client on what the expectations are, but at the same time, build expertise. And if you get paid to learn, that's even better. Okay, and here's one tip that is gold. If this helps you speed up your process and you move faster, awesome. At a certain point, you could remove your pricing from your website, or you could say starting at and put a fee. But what you can do is when you get on the call, I would always do an initial consultation for free. And on that call, you ask the client, what is your budget? And that question helps you understand what they are looking to do. They could say they want a website and they want all these things, and then they say their budget's $600. Or they say, hey, this is what we need. We're focused, we're experienced, and we're an actual business. We know what we want. This is exactly what we want. We're willing to pay up to $10K for it. And then from there, you could put together a proposal and a project scope for them. So that way you guys are clear, but at the same time, that is one of the key questions that helps you grow as a freelancer. Now, check out my other videos. I have another video about how to make 5K on the side with some of these same principles as a Squarespace designer, just starting out and using these same principles to build it. You could keep your corporate job, but make some money on the side. And hopefully soon down below in the links, you'll see that we have put together a community of Squarespace designers just like you. And if you want to get started, it'll be perfect for you. Check out the links below. When we launch that, you'll be able to get access to that. Now, thank you for watching. If you're looking for more content like this, we publish new content every single week, multiple videos a week, and it may help you in your process. So hit the like button down below, subscribe if you want to stay notified of all of that new content. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.